everyone, how you doing? I've missed you guys so much. Hope you missed me. Welcome to a brand new tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to be making a boo-boo, and you know it's raining now. But there's going to be a variation in the one I'm going to be making. One is going to have a normal sleeve. It will be short sleeve. It will be long sleeve, and the other one will just be the normal boo-boo sleeve. And trust me, it's going to be very, very easy to make. But before we continue, hope you are subscribed. If you are not, just take time to hit on the red button right down there, and then you see a tiny bell, just tap on it. It helps you get a notification each time we put up a video. And before we get started, I just want to tell you the tools are available. We have them in plastic and wooden. These brown ones are wooden, while this white and red are plastic. We have the hip cup. This is the hip cup. It also comes in wooden. Then we have the pant cup, both plastic and wooden. Then we have the straight ruler. The wooden is longer. This is 1 meter, and this is just 24 inches. We have the armhole cup. Then we have the pattern master. This is the pattern master. We have pins. We have seam ripper, tracing wheel. In case you are interested, I'll put the contact link in the description box below. Now we are going to be making use of this fabric here. You need all your normal measurements. You need your bust circumference, your hip circumference, the length of the gown. Like for me, mine is going to be 62 to 63. So looking at this, here I have 3 yards of fabric. Then I want this stripe to be along my body. So the first thing you have to check is if this will be enough for the length of the gown. But for me, this is just okay. Now let's go over to the work table and get started. So now I want you to listen attentively to this part, because I want to save my fabric, because I'm still going to cut out the sleeve for this dress. I want to save some fabric. At the same time, I want to cut both the front and the back together. So what do I do? Now, remember, fine one is a boo-boo sleeve. The other one, we're going to cut it just like a normal A-line gown. So what do we do now? When you are cutting an A-line gown, you use the largest circumference to fold your fabric. Like mine is my hip measurement, which is 44 inches. Quarter of that, that is 44 divided by 4, is 11 inches. But because I want it to be free, I will add another 1 inch to each, which will make it 12 inches. Then for seam allowance, I will add extra 1, so that will make it 13 inches. But because it's an A-line gown, you will add extra 5 inches to it. That is the minimum. So that will be 13 plus 5, which will give me 18 inches. That is for the normal side, whereby we will take in the side seam allowance and add the sleeve. So that is 18 inches. So what I will do now is this. I'm just going to fold this way and make sure I have 18 inches here. So here I have 18 inches. That is okay. So that will be for the side that will have the sleeve. But the one that will have the boo-boo sleeve will be longer. So all you have to do is to take your measurement from your center back down to your wrist. And for me, it is 31 inches plus hemming allowance inclusive. So what do I do? Now, since I know this is 18 inches, I can always trim this because this is uneven, but I will maintain this fold. 31 inches. Now this is the middle. I'm just going to measure 31 inches from here down here. Can you see that? So that will be for the boo-boo sleeve. This will be for the parts that will have the sleeve, just for either the front panel or the back panel. So what do I do now? From this point, you can just add extra 1 inch. Then I can now open this up, then fold over. Because we want to determine the amount of fabric needed. So can you see this now? So this is the amount of fabric I will be using for the main dress, while the remaining one will be for the sleeve. Do you get that? So I'm just going to cut this off. I'll cut this off. After doing that, I'll cut this place open so that I can cut both the front and the back together. Then I can fold over. Hope you get what I just explained. Now, this is the amount of fabric needed. I'm going to trim that off, then open up these parts. so it will be easier for me to fold both for the front and the back together. I'll just do that and then show you the rest. Now the fabric has been trimmed off. You can see now, this is what I have. I trimmed it off. And as I said, you can open this up, but I just decided to leave this since I'm just going to cut it off after inserting all my measurement. Hope you understood I explained how to determine the amount of fabric to use for this outfit. But if you don't want to go through that stress, remember I said quarter of my hip measurement plus extra 5 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance for an A-line gown. Just add it to from your center back down to your wrist. Like mine was 31, so that's 18 plus 31, which will give me, I think, 49. So that's how you can also determine it if you don't want to go through that stress. So now, remember I told you one side is going to be a normal A-line. So that was why I folded that same 18 here. So let me just check. I still have the 18 inches. So here I have, okay, that's good. I have exactly 18 inches here. So we are going to drop this first part first before we now do the normal sleeve, bubu sleeve for this other part. So before then, just make sure you try to pin your fabric down. It is very, very essential. So once again, I'm just going to rearrange my fabric, then we'll start drafting. Now I've been rearranged all my fabric. The first thing now is to mark out the baseline. So this is where all the measurements will start from. I'm just taking my time because of the fabric, because it keeps moving. So now having done that, so the next thing now is to insert my shoulder measurement, or before that you can insert all your horizontal measurement, that is across your body. So here I still have like 1/4 inch I can use to sew it up at the shoulder. So from here I'll just measure 8.5 inches. Then from there I'll go to my waist measurement, which is 16.5. My hip measurement, which is 24. Then I'll make all these points into a straight line. Now I have them in straight line. So let me just insert the 3 inches, 8 inches standard for the shoulder slope. 3 inches, 8 inches. So from here now I'll just come down by 1 inch, which is here. So this is the shoulder slope. The next thing now is to insert my shoulder measurement, half of it. Mine is 8.5. You could add extra 1/2 inch for seam allowance, but I'll make it 8.5, which is here. Then I'll insert that same 8.5 here. Then I'm going to lift my ruler. So now this is for the armhole. So I haven't done that. I just hope it's visible. The next thing is to insert my horizontal measurements. Quarter of my bust measurement is 10.5, but because it's a free gown, I'll just make it 11, which will be here. Remember your seam allowance, 1 inch, which is here. Then I'll go over to the waist. Quarter of my waist measurement is 9 inches, but because it is free, I'll add extra 1 inch to it to make it 10. So I have 10 plus 1 inch seam allowance I had here, so that would be 11 inches, which will be here. The next thing will be to the hip measurement. Quarter of my hip measurement is 11 inches, but because I want it to be free, just as I added 1 inch here, I will add extra 1 inch to it, so that will make it 12. So 12 is here, but don't forget the 1-inch seam allowance. That will make it 13. Can you see that? Let me just quickly connect that. I will just be done with that. This is for the side. I will have the sleeve in my hip curve. Let me see this. So before we extend this straight down, I will quickly map out the armhole. So half of this. So from that point I'll come in. That's for the front panel by 3/4 inch. So you can decide to neglect this for now, then trim it off later. But let me just explain it so you will know you have to do this to your front panel. So 3/4 inch. Then with my armhole curve, this will be for the back. So you will have to cut the back panel first, then trim up this front one later. That's why I'm taking my time to explain that. But on a normal day I would have just cut out the back armhole, then trim it off later. Since we are done with the armhole area, I'll just leave the neckline for now. I'll now have to remove my pin to pull it up to extend this to the hem of the dress. So now I've moved it up, and this is the hem of the dress. So I calculated 18 when we started, so to go over it again, just get whatever you have here. Here I have 13 plus extra 5. That's the minimum you could do. So that will give me 18. And 18 is here. I'll just take this 1 meter ruler, then connect from the hip area down here. You could just add 4 inches if you don't want it too wide. You see that? So the next thing I will do now is to trim this off. Only for the upper layer, not the lower one. This will be a bubu sleeve. So I'm going to cut out this very one, following this pattern. Let me just get my scissors. Remove my pin and start trimming it from here. Be careful with your fabric. Can you see? Only for the upper one. Just going to go gently. The upper one, don't make that mistake, please. I'm going to stop here, then move it back downward to be able to cut this easily. I can continue. Remember the back one first. So once you are through with all your cutting, then you can now trim out only one, which will be for the front. Adjust that later. So looking at it now, we are done with one panel. Can you see that? So now this we will take 1 inch in, then add the sleeve, but this we are just going to sew it together. So what you do now is to trace this measurement down here. You are going to trace it on the other part, because this is the one that has the bubu sleeve. Just take your time to trace it all out. You see that? So you are just going to trace it all down, guideline to sew on this side. So now, having done that, let me just flip this. Remember, seam allowance has been added to this particular one, this side, because we are taking 1 inch in. But for this, we don't need to take in any seam allowance because we are just going to sew both the front and back together with a straight stitch. So after tracing it, now I just have to stop here and can always do that later. Just take your measuring tape, measure 1 inch inward, 1 inch here, at the waist area 1 inch, at the hip area 1 inch. Because we remember we added seam allowance to this, but we don't need seam allowance for this measurement. After doing that, just connect with your straight ruler from here down to this 1 inch, then the same thing and connect it down. So what I'll do now is to trace mine all down, then show you before we continue. Now I've traced everything. I'll just flip this a little. Can you see that now? So this exact measurement is what I have here, this outer line. Can you see it? But because we have the seam allowance to this part and we don't need the seam allowance here, we are just going to sew on this line. So I came in 1 inch at this part, at the waist, hip, then straight down. So when you are sewing this to the back panel, all you have to do is to sew on this line. Can you see that? On that line. But where do you want to start sewing? You can use the measurement from the nape of your neck to the bust point or under your bust for this bubu sleeve. But this, you just sew your seam allowance right from your armhole area. So now let me just get my measuring tape. So now, under my bust measurement is 14 inches, which will be around this part. So for the bubu sleeve, you'll be sewing around here. That is if you want to start sewing from under your bust measurement. But if I want to use my bust point, that will be around this part, which is 10.5. So that means you just start from this point and sew down. That is if you want to start from under your bust. But if you want to start sewing from your bust point, you take the measurement from you. Start sewing from here downward. Hope you understood that. Now I'm going to rearrange everything. On a normal day with this first line, I can always know how to sew, but this is a tutorial. I have to really expatiate on it. That is why I'm taking my time. Let me just adjust it, then we'll do the bubu sleeve. Now since I'm done with the explanation of others, then I need the measurement from my center back down to my wrist, which is 31 inches for me. You have to measure yours. So 31 inches from the center back here. I now have to mark this. I'll move down here. 31. It has to go straight to the hem of the dress. Can you see that? So I'll use my 1 meter ruler to connect it into a straight line. Now I've made the straight line. Now I can now trim it off. So now having trimmed that off, we are done with that. So what is left now is just the shoulder slope and then the neck width and depth. For the neck width, I will just make it 4 inches. It's just okay. I don't want it to be too wide. So 4 inches is here. Then for the depth, I'll just make it 3 inches, because by the time I take it in, it will become like 3/4 or 3.5. So it's just okay for me. So that's that. Then I'll take my 1 meter ruler to extend this shoulder slope to the edge of the bubu sleeve. Make sure the fabric is well arranged for cutting. Wow, it's good. We are done. That's it on that. Let me just remove my pins. then we start sewing it together. Now I'm going to open it for you to see how it looks. Can you see that? So this is the side I'll have the sleeve, and for this, with this chalk, with the mark of the chalk, I know where to start sewing and where to sew. Can you see that? Looking at it already, oh, it's so beautiful. So can you see that? So the first thing we will do now is to either, okay, first just join the shoulders. So for me, I'll just take in 1/4 inch. I'm just going to sew this shoulder area, and then from this edge here, I'm going to sew it down, attach it from the neck width down to the edge here. So after doing that, then I'll show you the next step. I've sewn the shoulders, can you see that? And then this very one. The next thing now is to finish the neckline. I already cut out a bias strip. This is the sleeve for this. And don't forget to trim out the front armhole, because I want my sleeve to be on the left hand side. So I had to trim this and not this initial one I drew the armhole line, because I want it to be on the left side. And this is my sleeve. So let me just show you the bias strip, then we'll finish the neckline. This is the bias strip I will use to finish the neckline. I've made a video on how to cut a bias strip and how to finish it with the neckline. So I'm just going to do that, then come back for the next stage. I will fix the neckline. The next thing now is to attach the sleeve to this side. This is the sleeve. I'm just going to attach the sleeve this way. So after attaching the sleeve, I'll now show you how to join the side all through. Now I've attached the sleeve, then I hem the lower part. Can you see that? The next thing now is to go back to the wrong side. I left 1 inch seam allowance on the sleeve and also on the side. So I'm just going to start 1 inch all through till the hem of the dress. After then, we will come to the other side. Now I've attached the sleeve and the sides. So it looks. Just give it a good press. Can you see that? Then I'll turn it back. So now for this, I'm going to hem all these sides. I'm just going to hem it to give it a nice finished look. Then remember, we have marked out where we want to sew this side. So either if you want your bust point or under the bust, but mine will just start from under my bust. So I'm just going to transfer these markings to the right side. So I'm going to transfer it to the right side. Then I'm going to start sewing, because even from here I can see it, because this chalk gave a very deep mark. So this is the bust point, this is under the bust. So from under this bust, I'm just going to sew it down, both panels together, and that's all. Now this is the results of the outfit. You can see it's so beautiful. Just try to make it. I'll share with us on our Facebook group, so innovation. You can see it is so nice. So just try to make yours. So in case you are interested in our monthly online training, I'll put the contact number in the description box and also in the comment section. We have it every month. The beginners class, intermediate, advanced class, module 1 and 2. In case you are interested, don't forget to subscribe, share with a lot of your own outfits with us on our Facebook group, Sewing Innovations. Bye for now.